Hello, I'm Yana Trafaz and I work for the Athens Institute for Education and Research, which is the World Association for Academics and Researchers. I'd like to welcome you to Actors Interview Series, where we interview the participants and attend our conference in Athens. Today I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Lluis Jofre, who's a professor at the University of Politècnica de Catalunya in Spain. Hello, welcome to Athens.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to discuss with you these little moments.
Thank you. So can you give me a brief academic introduction of yourself?
Yeah. My specific background, I'm an electronic engineer, more specifically a telecom engineer, and a professor on telecommunications at the Technical University of Catalonia in Barcelona, Spain. My background, in fact, is, let me put that way, threefold. I'm a kind of a professional career at academic. In the academics, I am a professor in a telecom school at this Technical University of Catalonia. I'm teaching communications staff, radio communication, wireless systems, and things like that. As a second, my background is, let's say, an international path. I have been visiting different universities in the world for a 1-2 years stay. First one was in Paris, the École Supérieure d'Électricité. Then I spent 1 year at Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, Georgia States. And third and last was at the University of California, Irvine. That's the second. And the third one, I have kind of an institutional professional career. At the university level, I have been a dean of a school, vice president of the university, but also I have been for 5 years, in fact, from 2011 to 2016, the Secretary for Universities and Research of the regional government in Catalonia, leading university and research system. And then finally, I'm also the chair of a company, Share Telefonica, working on new trends on information society.
So what's currently your major area of research?
In fact, I am more and more concerned for the new ways to communicate, not just electronically, but with our world around. We know that in the near future, of midterm, we will try to communicate with everything. That's the so-called Internet of Things. But we know also that we would like to talk with our living world around directly. So we are working, for example, on how to communicate with plants.
But how would that happen, for example?
Yeah, because when plants or microorganisms move and send commands, when they send those commands, what they do, they send kind of electrochemical or electrical signals. And those signals may be listened from abroad. So we may try to talk with those kind of, instead of talking mobile to mobile, talking human beings to microorganisms or human beings to human beings directly with us.
So would that happen with some sort of machine or?
No.
No. Okay.
Yes, in the first steps, for example, I may imagine a mobile phone talking with a plant. For example, what that means, there is, for example, a plant that's called Mimosa pudica, that when you touch it,
Okay, yes.
So I may imagine from the mobile just sending messages directly to the plant, just to ask the plant to open or close their leaves.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You have to imagine that
yes.
as a first step. So that's the kind of things that we are. So the machines are there, but probably the next step is to talk
without. Okay, very interesting. So,
and the second point,
yes.
That's into the, let me say, nano bio world. Another field of interest for me it's, from my telecom, the mobile is already plenty of things and sensors. And probably there are still missing things, but there is not so much room to put additional things. Instead, there is a new device that's appearing, not appearing, but changing in a disruptive way, is the way that people will move the new generation of moving cars. That would be electrical, that would be autonomous, no drivers, and that would be shared. So the way that youth people would use those kinds of devices would radically change. So mobility, especially into the big cities as Athens or Barcelona, need to change. Otherwise, it's more and more difficult to move peoples and freights. So that's one thing that also is attractive.
So how would it change? How do you view it changing?
Look, for example, it is said that cars, at the end of the years, when you take into account 365 days and 24 hours, the cars are used just 5% of their time. The rest, they are parked. Imagine that we are able to share those cars, and each individual car, instead of being using just 5%, is used just 10% or 20%. With 4 times less cars, you may do the same. So imagine that the number of cars is reduced. Imagine that you, instead of owning a car in Athens, that probably it's complicated, parking it and moving it, you just share, you just ask for a car as the Vikings in the cities. So it's because those cars would be no driverless. So imagine that with your mobile, you ask for a car, the car takes you, moves you, but another one uses the same car. So imagine how the face of the cities may change, where those cars are shared, those cars are driverless, those cars are electrical, those cars are smaller, and those kind of things. So probably there are plenty of new things, and that's really important for Europe in general, because automotive industry, it's one of the biggest part, but a new business will appear just the way you manage all those new devices.
So this is more practical, but it will also be better for the environment as well with less cars. So, okay, very nice. So what did you present at the conference?
In fact, I'm presenting 2 things. One is the idea that we need to educate engineers more socially committed, more socially connected. We need engineers that are more front office, more than back office. And in order to do that, we need to change a little bit the way we educate those engineers, putting on their education tools just to allow them to take these new challenges. So we need to educate the engineers in the way that they face the big challenges, the big problems, starting from the big challenges and then moving down, not the other way around. So the first talk is how to help, that the society need more committed engineers, and the engineers need to be more readable, more understandable, more social oriented. So how to do that? That's
so
one.
How would this happen briefly?
Yes, the basic idea is the different courses, in the different approaches you do for the engineers. Just start with the big challenges, orient them to those big challenges, and do the teaching, trying to solve those challenges. For example, the case I mentioned you about the urban mobility, instead of going, the engineer just in solving the electrical problem of the car, just orienting them on how afford this big social. How could you help a city to change the actual way to organize the mobility to a new way? That's not just technical stuff. It's basically technically, but there are social, economical aspects, government aspects that you need to put people together. So my point is we need to move engineering education in that direction. That's one of the talks.
Okay.
And the second talk I am giving is just to present, to explain a little bit the university and research system in our small region in Spain. That's Catalonia. It's a 7 million people region, and the system in 30 years has been able to go up, and nowadays is one of the top European regional academic systems. So I'm planning to discuss a little bit where the clues, where the key points just to move that way.
Okay, so how were you introduced to ACNR and what made you attend the conference?
Good point. In fact, I was contacted by the ACNR presidency inviting me to attend, and I thought that due to the scope of the conference that in my respect was proposing this kind of general things more than a specific technical aspects, I thought that was really convenient. And I thought that this part of the year, July, is kind of a more calm part, at least in principle at the end. It's not that, but, and finally I thought that the ambience of Athens and the people coming from around was really appropriate. And in fact, this morning in one of the sessions I had, was really great because we were people from Australia, America, Europe, and really was great. Just mixing approaches, and in fact we discovered that the concerns in the 3 continents
Were the same.
were the same. And so and then we saw that even the approaches were not exactly the same, but they were quite complementary. So we exchanged data and we agreed on contacting each other. So that was my my intuition, and that has been right.
Very nice. Okay, I'm glad you're enjoying the conference. So, can you tell us a few things about the higher educational system in Spain, and what do you think are its advantages or its disadvantages? Also, do you see a difference in Catalonia and the rest? Because before you said something about the educational system in Catalonia. So,
good point. In fact, nowadays, on higher educations, on countries where economics are really tough, are difficult because...
Yes, also in Greece. So,
when you ask the people, the regular people, what are their main interest in let me say, modest economy, they put in front things like health. They put in front things like retirement. They put in front things like basic education. And they are right.
Yes.
Because that's the short term, and that's really needed. And then the higher education, the point is that's the mid-long term. Probably in the long term, it's much more important to invest on that. But for then how do you balance? Because when you have a, let me say, regular economy, you may balance, but when you are really pressed, you are imbalanced economically, how do you find a good point? That's one of the problems in Spain. So, in fact, nowadays, the students are asked to pay high registration costs. That's, in the short terms, it's acceptable in the sense that's the only way, but in the mid-long term, that's not, because there are people that's not able to attend you. So that's one thing. The second thing is higher education, as the good wine, needs long periods of stability. So to create a really good higher education system, you need 30, 40, 50 years. So politics, it's in the short term. So in order to get a good higher education, you need stability, continuity. You need the different parties agreeing on not touching the higher education, not touching in the sense, not keep changing. So that's the, let me say, the second. And the third point is the so-called to attract talent. How, in fact, to have a very good in university and research system, you need to attract international, well-prepared people that may be from your own country, but that they are around. Then how do you are able to retain and to attract those people that sometimes are scattered into the world? Do you need, and then how do you, people from inside, so attraction and retention of talent is a really important thing, otherwise your system would be second level. So nowadays the world is somehow unique, and you need to have first level people. And Spain, we have plenty of people around, and probably Greece. So how can we organize ourselves to create the system in a state? So that's the three things: the budget, stability, and talent.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.